We're live in Eagle Pass. It's February 21st, 2024, and these are your headlines. As you can see, we are once again right here in Eagle Pass, which has become, you can hear the birds if you're listening to this, I think. But this has become really the focal point of a lot of the talk around the invasion that we're seeing at the southern border. It's hard to believe it's been now a month since we were here last, after the Supreme Court, the U.S. Supreme Court, ruled that essentially Border Patrol could come in and cut down some of the razor wire and other barriers that Texas had been placing in an effort to try to curb some of the illegal crossings that we have seen specifically, along the entire border, but specifically in this region from Del Rio to Eagle Pass. Now, a month later, this area is still fortified by the state. Behind me is Shelby Park. You can see, if you're watching the video, you can see the Mexican flag and Piedras Negras just on the other side of the Rio Grande. And this area is still essentially closed to U.S. Border Patrol. Instead, in their place, you have the Texas Department of Public Safety, as well as Texas National Guard that have essentially been holding the line during that time. Now, there have been some newer developments. Governor Greg Abbott just recently announced that just several miles to the east of here, they are going to be building a more permanent camp for the Texas National Guard and other state officers that they put down here in the state's effort to protect the border, where the Biden administration essentially has advocated the responsibility. There have been record high crossings since President Biden took office in 2021. The state saying they're going to take a more permanent presence here. It gives you a little bit of an idea of just how severe the problem is and, frankly, what the outlook is for the state. Now, we don't have the official numbers just yet, but reports that have trickled out have suggested that the crossings may be lower here in Texas than they were a month ago, than they were 2 months ago. A lot of that has moved over to Arizona, New Mexico, and California. You have a latest report, though, that shows that a total of 208 Chinese nationals were apprehended by United States Border Patrol agents in San Diego, California, earlier this week. That was according to Fox News correspondent Bill Malugin. Of course, earlier this month, Texas Scorecard reported on data from Customs and Border Protection sources who said that nearly 20,000 Chinese citizens had entered through the southern border since October 1st. That's essentially the equivalent of around 150 Chinese nationals illegally entering every day. In fiscal year 2023 alone, just 37,000 Chinese nationals were encountered on the border. So this is a major increase. Additionally, information from the U.S. Department of Justice shows that 55% of Chinese nationals were granted asylum, compared with 14% of illegal border crossers from other countries. Some are also sounding the alarm on the link between the immigration wave and foreign influence operations by the Chinese Communist Party and the People's Liberation Army. In 2022, Texas Scorecard delved deeply into the extent of CCP operations within the state of Texas, noting that the Communist Party's involvement in leveraging local politicians, buying up farmland, and funding nonprofits is happening right here in the state of Texas.
If you're not watching the Luke Macias Show, then you are not as engaged as everybody else is in Texas who's trying to make a difference, knowing exactly what's going on so that they can take action on the things that really matter. Guys, watch us on the Roku app for Texas Scorecard. Watch us on YouTube. Listen to us on Apple Podcasts, Spotify. Get engaged, get more informed, so together we can actually make a bigger difference on things that matter for the future of Texas. God bless you.
And the problem could be getting worse. After record numbers of illegal aliens have flooded into the United States, well, U.S. Immigration and Customs Enforcement is working on plans, reportedly, to release thousands of illegal aliens from detention centers into the country. Now, according to a report from the Washington Post, ICE is planning on mass releasing more than 16,000 illegal aliens into the country after Senate Republicans and a handful of Democrats rejected a border security measure, quote unquote, by the Biden administration. It was supported by Biden. The measure would have erased a $700 million budget shortfall, but did not address Republican concerns over the actual border crisis. The legislation opposed by Republican lawmakers would have provided $6 billion in supplemental funding for ICE enforcement operations, After it was voted down, ICE began to circulate an internal proposal to deal with its budget shortfall by suggesting that they reduce the detention levels from 38,000 down to 22,000. Essentially, this is a punishment for the Senate, for the House, rather not going along with some of the radical Democrats' quote-unquote border control plan that doesn't really address the problem. Meanwhile, House Republicans impeached Department of Homeland Security Secretary Alejandro Mayorkas last week, claiming his failure to enforce federal immigration laws was hindering national security. Mayorkas will now face a trial in the Senate next month. You can check out more of our reporting from here at the border and all across the state at TexasScorecard.com.